everybody. Welcome back to Deliberations of Doom. Episode 2. Alan's like, Doom.
Welcome to One of Us show, live from the end of the world, episode 8. 8 weeks. And I started after this was already going on for a while. That's crazy. My guests this week are a bunch of deeply beloved by me gentlemen who all formed at one time or another the podcast Deliberations of Doom. First off, I'm going to bring up the Summers brothers. Hello, Russell and Robert Summers. How are you guys holding up during all this?
We're making it. We're making it. It's not ideal, but we're doing okay. How about you?
Not too bad. Obviously staying busy with new projects. That's how I do it. Getting deep into heavy organization. Like everything I have digitally has now been like, you know that scene in High Fidelity when he's like, I reorganized my album collection by time of my life when I discovered them. That's kind of my life. Right?
Autobiographically.
Yeah, exactly. Also coming in, of course, we got Philip.
Hey, cheers.
Hey, Margarita Man. How you doing? It's been a long time.
Good, man. Good. Just working on making margaritas and got it right, finally.
As one does. Next up, we got Alan.
Oh, hi there.
I told you about reading that book. It's not good.
How y'all doing?
Next up, we have Nick.
What's up, guys?
How is everyone? What is your favorite thing that's happened, like that you've discovered during all of this isolation? First off, let's start on a happy note.
I've been spending a lot of time training a feral cat. Slowly but steadily, getting her to recognize that she likes head scratches and she likes being pet. Like, we're getting there.
That's impressive.
That is impressive. That is a huger challenge than I would be willing to take on. Phil and the Summers brothers, both of y'all guys make films actively and regularly. So are y'all working on any projects right now while like using your time to go, this is my formulation? Or maybe you're doing I could film something in my own house.
Y'all want to go first? What side are you on? You're over there. You guys want to go first?
Russ? Yeah, we're actually editing a new short that we shot last year. So this has given us the time to really focus in on it.
Fix all of our terrible mistakes.
Yeah, which has taken a lot of time. We've been doing a lot of writing, and I'm hoping we might try and shoot something during quarantine. We'll see what happens.
Nice.
It's awesome.
I been reading a lot. Optioned a new script that I really liked that I'm developing with a writer in England, and then I've got another older script of mine got picked up by a pretty big company, so they're starting to pitch it now. So hopefully we get to make that one when this all ends. So yeah,
that is working on. Super badass. Alan, I went to go see your band play recently and they were pretty fucking great. Are you doing stuff with that or are you working on other projects?
No, we haven't. We probably really suck right now. We haven't practiced or played instruments in a long time. We talked about, I think soon we're going to try to do like our bass is going to go house by house and track a certain thing and we're going to record like a cover to put out there. But that's going to be an interesting project, but that's not happening for another week or so. Other than that, I've been watching a lot of movies, and I built like a little bench and deck for a back home at my girlfriend's house. So I'm learning how to work with wood.
That's scary.
Cutting and screwing wood. Yeah. That's what I'm doing.
That's my list of projects I'll take on. That's not on there because I know I would just do it myself.
It wasn't on mine too about like 2 weeks ago, and all of a sudden, like here I am.
My dad constantly was trying to get me into building stuff, and I would build stuff. And the best way I think to describe it is, do you remember there was an old Kids in the Hall sketch where they're saying, we found some stuff from when Jesus was a carpenter, and they're all like terrible. It's like a 2 I'm like, that's like me. It's like, well, it's true that Jesus may have been the Son of God, but he also had few career options.
So you're comparing yourself to Jesus right now is what you're doing.
Well, we're all here because we were part of the Deliberations of Doom podcast on Oneofus.net at various different times. And the one person we're missing here is our beloved Patience Robinson Campos, who unfortunately passed to the beyond this what's the term? Mortal coil. She'd be mad at me for fucking this up, but you know,
Mortal coil. You got it.
She's
shrugged off the mortal coil. I think,
there you
right?
go. I told her specifically, and because I spent a lot of time with her, and I know some of you guys did as well, going to see her in the hospital. And I told her specifically, I was like, if you die, you know, you should haunt me just relentlessly. I'm okay with that. Nothing so far, but Carlos, her husband's telling me shit happens here all the time.
That's awesome. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. But she was fantastic. She was weird. I actually had to learn how to use a new plugin for WordPress just to get this goddamn slideshow to work.
It was all worth it, Chris.
Well, I don't know.
It looks very high tech.
I know you're like, people are like, what? She's alive. No, that was before inflation.
Wow.
But man, so many memories of her. The show started with me and the Summers brothers. We met because I just was like, I should go to this next door big bar complex that I haven't been to yet and try out something. Random chance wandered in, went to the Irish pub because it had the most amount of visible good beers out front. Met both of these guys who were working. We talked all night and that was it. And then after 2 shows, I think I met Patience at the Nomad Bar, one of my other regular haunts. So you should come be on the show. And she joined. I think, Philip, you were like the episode after that or something.
Yeah.
That went on for quite a while. Eventually, it went to where it was you guys left, and it went to me, Patience, Alan, and Nicholas. Nicholas, you work with Patience's husband, Carlos, at Gourmands, and Alan, we've known each other since the first Fantastic Fest.
Yeah.
Since way back. But yeah, she was lovely. We all adored her. Does anybody, before we get started into her list of favorite movies that she gave me, admittedly while on drugs in her hospital bed?
No, that's an accurate list. I know she loves those movies, and some of them I hate, and some of them I love as well.
I think it's a insanely representative list that, like, a beloved horror franchise, and she picked the 3rd installment, not the first movie, of course.
Right.
And then Hellbound, like the second Hellraiser movie we're going to cover, which is like just not as good as the first Hellraiser, but of course that's her favorite one.
Yeah.
like that's really fun to me, but also like some classics in there. I think it's a really good representative list of like what Patience is into.
By the way, the question, while on drugs, did she include some good ones? No, she was in the hospital. They were hospital drugs. They weren't the fun drugs. Come on.
I'm surprised Nightbreed isn't on here at all.
I thought that too. I thought Nightbreed would be on here for sure. We should definitely mention it later when we get to Hellbound. I think we should.
Indeed. Well, I guess let's just do that then. Let's just start talking about the movies, and we'll just go. We'll start with Hellbound, Hellraiser 2. Why not? Which was one of the ones I knew that for her, Clyde Barker specifically was a huge deal. But Hellbound and the Hellraiser series, I mean, come on, we're talking about the first 2 films, really. But even she would try and defend the worst of them just because they're Hellraiser movies at points. But I admit, Hellraiser 2 for me was kind of a big deal. 1 and 2. I'm one of the guys who prefers 2. I'm sure that at the very least the Summers brothers will disagree with me.
I disagree. I'll come in there. Yeah. Although I do always appreciate a sequel who's like, they have the movie done. It's like, yeah, this is only like 78 minutes long. It's like, well, let's get about 10 or 12 minutes from the first movie and edit it in. It's like one of those, like, the movie opens with like 5 minutes of Hellraiser, and then roughly like 20 minutes in, they do another like 10 minutes again of their first Hellraiser, just narration.
It's never a good sign.
It's never great.
And I feel like there was a whole spate of that in the 80s and 90s of let's just put the first 5 minutes just gonna be the other movie. Yeah, the kids love that.
Previously on
Hellraiser. Yeah. Let's flash back for another 5 minutes here.
It's great. It does it twice too, which is like pretty impressive.
For me, I think Hellraiser 2 is a little bit like Terminator 2 or like Aliens, where as a child I liked it more than the first one, but as an adult I think the first one is the better of the 2 movies.
You put away childish things.
Yes.
I would like to say Rob and I received an anguished late night text from Mr. Phil Gooseman as he watched Hellraiser.
What? That was me. That was the other guy watching. I feel like Hellraiser 2 like suffers from kind of like what Halloween 2 did, where they were like, you know what, fuck it, we don't need to develop a new story. We're just going to piggyback what already happened, and it'll just be like a really long climactic ending of the first one. And my favorite thing about Hellraiser 2 is in the description it says 2 decades later, it remains the most brutally original sequel in horror film history, which in translation meaning it has fucking nothing to do with Hellraiser 1. The most brutally original sequel. Like, what? Who puts that as like their tagline? It's not supposed to be original. It's a sequel.
Did you ever read the last book that Barker wrote, which is kind of more of a sequel to the movies than to the book? And it's one of those guys who's like, fine, I guess the movies are more popular than my original stories. I'll write a sequel to the movies. It's ridiculous. It's like, but what if it was more like a fantasy adventure into the realms of hell?
Yeah, doesn't that sound?
It feels like one of those dark video games, you know, the type I'm talking about, where it's like an RPG set in hell and you've got to find power-ups and shit.
Here's the question I want to ask all you guys. What happens when you're in hell and you die in hell?
Yeah, Phil said that before we did our rewatch, and it fucked up the movie for him.
They're dropping like flies. Like, where do they go? Like,
I guess you get bumped down to the next sequel, like Hell 2, Hellbound 3. Like if you die in Hell and Hellraiser, you go to Hellbound. Hellbound. I forget what the third one is.
No, you don't want to die in Hellraiser 2 then, that's for sure.
Yeah, you gotta make it out of there.
Bloodlines.
Yeah, CD Cenobite. Remember that guy? The guy who's a DJ and dies. And CDs being thrown at him, and then they turn into a Cenobite whose ability is to like launch CDs at people and kill them with them. I mean, that was the most 90s thing ever.
So quickly, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but we should contextualize this movie real quick if anyone is not familiar with it, okay? Which is, first off, I wanted to point out, you asked Patience to haunt you. This is her fucking haunting you. We watched this, and I really felt like, holy shit, like Patience is sticking it to us from beyond the grave. Like, it was so weird. But I think one of the things I did want to talk about on this as we go through the movies is, not just the movie, which is a lot, but why Patience liked the movie. Yeah. And I think that was really something Russ and I discussed a bunch while like, why, like you said, she didn't pick one, which seems like it's the only really probably good Hellraiser. I mean, but she picked two, and Russ and I looked at these, and I kind of towards the end, I would like to get into maybe what I thought ties all these movies together, but it was interesting to me, like, why did she like this one more than the first one, you know, because the first one, you know, it kind of holds together
objectively
better.
It's
objectively a bit, but I mean, I don't have a.
You guys are like, you can't argue with me, Cox. It's science.
Who are you, the Trump administration? This is science. Hellraiser 1 is better.
Alternative facts.
Alternative facts. Exactly. I would like to say. I believe on the Clive Barker episode that you and Patience tried to sneak in a review of Hellbound during that podcast.
That sounds correct.
Which we had to stop you. I had to throw my body in front of this review.
You were totally like, no, wait, stop. What's happening? We're not talking about this.
I remember watching this movie as a kid and thinking it sucked, and then watching it. I think I fell asleep. It was like a birthday party or something. And we when I watched again this time, it was still terrible. And then somewhere around the half-hour mark, it got kind of fucking interesting. And I thought it felt like more of a sequel to the original. There was some stuff. I started to see what they were going for with this one. And I really started to, there was probably a good 40 minutes of the movie I actually really enjoyed. And I was sort of mad at Patience because I was like, how dare you? I thought I hated this movie, and now I kind of liked it. So thanks, Patience. I will say the last third kind of broke down. But I don't know. It was going to be hard for me to not say this was kind of an interesting rewatch.
It was weird for me because I only really remember the last third of the movie where they're in hell. Real quick review. the chick from the first movie wakes up in an insane asylum. Some doctor's trying to use the cube to restart hell.
Dr. Chenard.
Yeah, the chick.
Who's great, by the way.
By the way, does
That
he
actor
not
is fantastic.
sound exactly like James Mason? Like he
Yeah.
sounds exactly. For like 30 minutes of the movie, I wasn't even really watching. I was like, "Who does he sound like? Who's he sound like?" And it was James Mason in the fucking Verdict. Anyway, sidebar, but he gets the chick from the first thing, shows up because he has this killed me. This is probably where Phil checked out. He's like, I'm done. He's using the mattress. That is what they really focus on in this movie.
Not the box.
Not the box.
Yeah.
In gross mattress. This guy is like, from this like crime scene. And he tries to, but I will say, once he gets the dude to like slit his fucking shit,
It's an amazing sequence.
yeah,
It's amazing.
Brutal. I hate that.
You think it's the boyfriend Frank, but it's not. It's Julia. I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool.
all right.
This
And
movie actually about diseases you can catch from a dirty mattress. Is that what it's actually about?
I mean,
knowing Clive Barker, yeah, that's
there's a
probably,
lot of
it's probably
metaphor going on here.
That's true. That's why his voice is all like this now. Terrible joke. Terrible.
It's actually really good.
Next up, her movie pick was Fright Night. This is one of the ones I did go back and rewatch because it's been a long time. When she said we did a Deliberations of Doom with her, where she's like, Fright Night. I'm like, yeah. She's like, the remake. I'm like, what? But patience. And the remake actually isn't bad. I kind of like the remake. It's nowhere near as fun as the original is. But that being said, the original is pretty fucking doofy. You rewatch.
Yeah.
All
Like-
the 80s horror films are.
Well, you know what I love about the original? I rewatched it as well. I love how the stakes are so real, but it feels like a kid's movie. It almost feels like in line with Monster Squad or something.
Mm-hmm.
Even though our lead high school student looks like he's like 30 years old, but like it's still like I love this era of movies where it's on that line where like the stakes are real and like the violence it's kind of brutal in a lot of ways. But it still almost feels like it's like on Nickelodeon for some reason.
Yeah.
There's like a real levity to it. I love that vibe.
That's one of the things I liked about the remake. I thought Colin Farrell like really played into that very well. Like he's exactly that sort of person, where he's just sort of cheesy and sleazy and childish, like, I don't know. I feel like it was a good fit.
No, I tend to agree. It was a very different take than Roddy McDowall, who was playing a very different. I'm sorry. Yes, who was playing a very different version of that character, as well. Colin Farrell playing a really different version of the character than the Chris Sarandon, Susan Sarandon's lesser-known brother. I kind of prefer both of them in the roles, but as movies go, the original Fright Night is a better film. I think, honestly, it's goofy. People went on to not as many people are as legendary in this. I mean, William Ragsdale, for Christ's sakes, has pretty much done this and Herman's Head. Chris Sarandon has never really lived up to his promise of I think who everybody was thinking he was gonna be like. You watch this, and they were like, this guy is gonna be the sexy new Hollywood it guy.
Yeah.
He's the same guy who plays the cop in Child's Play, right?
Yes.
Yes, indeed he is. Yeah.
I just want to say, as usual, Chris is wrong. I think the original Fright Night is a movie I have no actual affection for. I think it's a really great premise and setup and structure. I give the movie credit for that. That I think is horribly executed. Rob and I just talked about how the scenes in the film are interminable. They just go on and on and on. I think Roddy McDowall is good, and I think the rest of the movie is some of like just a horribly bland cast of people who are kind of given a somewhat shoddy script to enact. The effects are pretty good.
I find it pretty charming. I don't know. I find a lot of it. It's like I was laughing a lot watching it, like purposely, and I had some stuff that maybe they didn't mean to have in there to be funny. But yeah, I found out like the relationship between the mom and the son, and just like I don't know, it all worked to me. But it seems like a happy accident that it all works, but it still works. Maybe it could be a lot of nostalgia. I
feel like there is a nostalgia filter to how people view the movie, which I understand. But for me personally, as someone who gives bad 80s movies a chance, this one just felt like it went on and on.
Yeah, there's an Evil Ed. That guy fucking is terrible.
Oh,
Man, My wife was
I just looked at him on screen. I was losing my shit. He's a bad actor. Everybody in the movie is overacting.
He did 12 years of gay porn after this, by the way. That's how great his career went. But he did eventually come back to
watch that. Yeah, I feel like he's probably better in that.
But
he's not natural at all. And he's irritating.
The score was amazing.
I have to say, I didn't even think Evil Ed was his friend.
Yeah.
For the first half of the movie, it really seemed like they like each other.
That's what I was saying. At no point does this guy seem friendly in any way. He's just a huge dick who makes fun of him the whole time. And immediately when he has a chance to turn to a vampire, he does so. And it's like fucks him over. He's like the worst.
My wife was sitting next to me when I was rewatching this last night. She was trying to do work. She's like, just put something on that I haven't seen before, but that I can only have to halfway pay attention to. And after the first scene with Evil Dead, she was like, that's the most annoying person I've ever heard in my entire life. I cannot be in the same room as this movie. I'm going in back.
And the movie like triple downs on him.
It leans into that.
It really showcases his irritating personality.
I would like to find like really big, like, I guess, like story flaws in there where like what, that makes no fucking sense at all. When they try to convince him that the neighbor's not a vampire, after he straight up transformed into a fucking vampire in his room and like smashed his face into the fucking wall. Like, yeah, let's tell him he's not really a vampire. He's drinking holy water. Like, what? Like,
yeah, and then they have the thing where the guy kind of brushes off any of the other tests. They're like, no, he's good. He's
good.
I just want you guys to know that if any of you come to me and say that your neighbor's a vampire, we will give it a much more thorough investigation than any of these other people did. I will give you the benefit of a doubt. I'm just saying.
What do we do if someone on this podcast is a vampire and we need
check it out? We'll check it out.
I always did find it weird, even when I was younger, that this kid like went to like the star of the vampire movies to kill a vampire. Like, is he 10 years old? Like, he's supposed to be like 18. Like, what 18-year-old is like, oh, I don't know, I'll go get an actor to help me. Like, he does understand the difference between like movies and reality. Should at least. It's really weird.
Yeah, and they spend the whole time I don't understand why anybody would go to that guy at all. And I think that's why the newer remake works better, is he's integrated more organically. It makes more sense. You think he might actually understand the occult. Whereas in this one, the biggest sin for me in this movie is this is my biggest thing with all horror movies as a horror movie fan, is how long in the movie do I have to watch the main character know something that I know to be real and no one else believes? Oh, there's a logical explanation. Oh, that couldn't happen. Oh, you're making stuff up. Everything's fine. This movie is like, that's like more than half the movie. I would say it's 3/4 of the movie is him trying to convince people this is happening. That is a tedious structure for a movie. And then you throw in Ed, who is just the last person I would think you would go to like help you move your couch or something. Like, the person next to me is an avowed murderer who has come to my house and exhibited supernatural powers. I'm gonna go see what this guy thinks I should do.
You're so cool, Bruce.
Yeah, you're so cool, Bruce. He's not even nice to him when somebody throws food at him. I mean,
the best part is that Patience would be deeply entertained by the fact y'all are shitting all over one of her favorite.
But I think
I do like this movie though.
Yeah, I do.
Responded to this kind of 80s vibe that these movies have, and the one Russ and I really. Russ, did you want to mention that? The movie that you want to talk about that?
No, we'll talk about later.
Okay, but I think like she really responds to that vibe, that kind of 80s nostalgia, like, you know,
it's kind of a gloopy Fangoria movie.
It's violent, it's weird, it's kind of dorky, and it's slightly better than it should be, but I feel like there is a reason no one in this movie really goes on to make anything else. None of the stars really, none of the
director did.
They really, like you're saying, it kind of comes together, but it works at the moment, but like looking back on it now, I think what's fun about it is this sort of goofy, nostalgic Stranger Things aspect.
Hold on. I want to say real quick, Alan, what film did this director do that you love?
Is it Child's Play?
Well, he did that, but what else?
Thinner?
Well, no, but no one loves Thinner. So
I do not love Thinner. I don't know. What's the other one?
Psycho 2.
No, this is not the director.
He wrote Psycho 2.
He wrote it.
Oh, did he write it?
Okay. Frank.
Well, I do what I can. And what
I do love Psycho 2, though.
I will say this guy wrote Cloak and Dagger,
yes,
which is very near and dear to my heart as a kid from San Antonio.
That's true. I used to love that movie. I haven't seen it in so long. I don't know if I still do. I saw a friend of mine who keeps doing these illicit Facebook watch things where he's like, fuck it, I don't care about the rules, and is just playing movies he wants to. And then he keeps getting busted halfway through and having to shut it down. I'm like, what are you doing? But he was playing Gotcha. I was like, Gotcha with Anthony Edwards. Do you remember that one?
Dude.
Came out right around the same time where he was like
Tarantino
playing on campus the game where they shoot the paint guns, and then he gets involved in actual spy stuff. Oh my god, I used to love the shit out of that movie.
And Joshua,
That shit was in theaters back in the days, man.
Well, we got it for time. Move on. And next is, of course, The Shining. No big shocker. That was one of her all-time favorites. And hard for me to say that's not going to be in my top 10 list as well. The original Stanley Kubrick's The Shining is an incredibly gorgeous and well-made film. There are points, I've seen it so many times that I'll watch it and sometimes I go, do I like this as much as I thought I did? Like, will I have problems with something? And then I'll watch it the next time and go, no, it is still good. I must have been.
Yeah. I'm the same way. Like, every time I watch it, it's just like, do I just have nostalgia for this? Or is this a straight up masterpiece? And it's like, no, yeah, it's a straight up masterpiece.
Straight up masterpiece. Yeah, exactly. What about you guys?
Yeah, I don't know really what to say about The Shining that hasn't been explored like tirelessly by everyone else. I just watched it earlier today just to kind of because I had time before we did this to see if there's anything new I could think to say about it. But I don't know. It's just like a certified classic. Unless anyone has like a weird hot take that it kind of sucks.
I wonder who might have a weird hot take on it.
Oh, here's my hot take, Cox. The Shining is an absolute masterpiece. It's one of the greatest movies.
God damn it.
Probably the platonic ideal of what a big studio horror film is, and it's definitely probably my favorite Kubrick movie. I would say I see why King didn't love it. It's definitely not King's version. I do think King's critique of Nicholson is fair, that it's fairly obvious he's nuts from the beginning. Yeah, I love The Shining. It still scares me. Every time I watch it, I cannot watch it alone or in the dark or any of that.
But I'll say, like, it's not Nicholson's fault. I mean, you got to think the guy's doing 1,000 fucking takes of every scene, and you don't know what they're editing it together.
Yeah.
I'm looking at one trivia thing here. Like, it says, according to Shelley Duvall, the Here's Johnny scene took 3 days to film and over 60 doors.
Jesus.
Think about that, man. Like, that would drive you insane.
I just
You
feel bad
would be Jack Nicholson.
I had to go through all the takes, but yeah.
Yeah. I think it's hard to really shit on
Hey,
this.
there we are, Rob.
I was going to throw some twin shit in there. Sorry. You guys creep us out, okay?
Yeah.
Just in general.
I totally get it.
Nature
I totally
freaks.
get it.
Yeah.
Yes. So one of my favorite things was I was walking out of my girlfriend's apartment, and there were these 2 little kids, and the one little kid looked at the other one, and I wasn't with my brother. So he was just saying it to his friend apropos nothing, and he goes, "Twins are weird, and that's why I hate them."
Wow, that's harsh, dude.
It was harsh. He didn't know I was right there, man.
That's how it goes.
Harsh and not really fair either,
I don't know. I kind of tend to agree with him. So
Yeah, I think The Shining is first off. I think Patience probably picked it because not only is it a great film, but she's such a Stephen King fan.
yeah.
And I think that those Stephen when we did Stephen King, it really was like her jam. Even the bad ones, she had some kind of interest in just based on the Stephen King connection.
Yeah.
I love The Shining. I think like it's a movie I go back to all the time. There's not many movies that can pull off the weirdness of it. I think that a lot of movies traffic in ambiguity, but it's more like a mistake. Like well, we don't have to explain that. Whereas this one doesn't feel that way. It feels more like a dream where it has its own logic. You never don't feel like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, how can he be the caretaker? And how can he also be at the bar? And I don't understand is he the same guy? What does that mean? Is he reincarnated? None of that matters. And I think that, to Phil's point, I listened to an interview with the editor and he talked about having to watch 80 takes of Jack Nicholson coming up the stairs with the bat. And he said, like, what is every take like? And he said, Kubrick, so when it starts, he's crying. And then like about take 30, he's like, oh, we're just going to keep doing this. So he like starts fucking around. And he said by the end, he goes really over the top and that's what Kubrick wanted. Yeah. So I think that, I think that doing the takes was really I think he was pushing for something where he stops acting and just starts being fucking crazy.
Joshua Zachary brings up, of course, conflicted, knowing how he brutalized Shelley Duvall and all that went on there. There's no question that you have to take into account anything like that. I mean, you have to take into account, like on The Exorcist, the way the exact same thing went on with Friedkin and one of his actresses.
Or
on
Last Tango in Paris with Bertolucci, and yeah,
exactly. But I can condemn that creator for that, but I can't look at the final work of art and bring it down a notch because of stuff like that. I can't bring myself to go, it's lessened as art because of it.
I think it's a tough call. Like, divorcing the artist from the art it's always something we're going to have to deal with. And I go back and forth for myself personally. Like, sometimes I'm thinking, like Rosemary's Baby, maybe I am not comfortable with this movie because I am not comfortable with this director and what he's done. And that's something that I shouldn't ignore. But then by the same token, you're like, but also, like, it's really,
it's a really good
movie.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing with, like, The Shining, in not only the movie or whatever, but her performance in it. And, like, it's like a legendary performance and a legendary movie. Now, I'm not saying that vindicates her treatment or anything, but, like, you could be like, yeah, it sucks that this happened to get to this point. But when you watch the movie, I never, even though I know it, every time I watch the movie, I never think about that, ever. I'm just, like, locked into the movie and, like, the intense nature of it.
Jennifer, I hear what you're saying. 100%. I'm just saying that way after the fact, we're still looking at a thing and going, like, this is a great movie, and that should not be allowed to happen. And to be fair, they have really changed the attention that goes on right now, where this sort of thing really isn't allowed to happen as much anymore. You can't have a director who comes in and is going to physically and psychologically abuse someone on set without getting taken down for it.
I don't know if we're far enough along those lines.
You said what there?
I don't know if we're far enough along those lines. Like, I would still like to see more. I still feel like there is a lot of this sort of, misbehavior by powerful men in the Hollywood industry. And we're making strides, but I feel like we've got a ways to go.
Our attention needs to not be flagging just because we said, look what we did.
Right.
Yeah. I was gonna, it definitely is like a hard thing because it's like there is no excuse for anyone to ever like brutalize anybody or to like treat an actor wrongly. And even like it's gone to the point now where SAG now has built in, like, any time there's a sex scene or sexuality involved, they have to have a liaison on behalf of the union there to make sure everything's handled correctly. It's pretty much like they have their own law team there to make sure, because it has to be protected. Like, when that stuff happens, it's not called for. And no amount of artistry ever, should justify someone being treated like shit like that. So.
Weird that animals started getting more protection on film before women did.
Yeah.
Can I just say, this is why I love having Patience around, to get that really great female perspective, and obviously Patience's own personal perspective. For this.
Yeah.
But just real quick, Spike Ghost 666 says, if you watch Cursive, he corrects later, Cursed films, where they touch on those things. Actually, we have a review on Oneofus.net. We did a full review of that, so check that out. Moving on to the next thing, what do we got here? We got Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. Once again, Patience not picking the first and definitely superior film in the series. I'm going to go against Patience on this one. The first Nightmare on Elm Street is unquestionably the best of the series. 3 is a goofy Halloween 80s trail ride of a movie that is really fun. But is it a good movie?
No.
I know.
I think it just has those things she loves about it, though, where like the imagination comes back through, and where like kids can like be anything in this world. It kind of has like a little bit of that Nightbreed thing she liked too, where it's just kind of this fantastical world in like hell, if you will. And it definitely, when I saw that on there, I go, that movie is like it's a Patience movie.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and I think, like, in the context of the Nightmare on Elm Street world, it's like a superhero movie.
Yeah,
which is
100%.
probably one of the things that she really liked about it.
Yeah. And it was also after 2, which was, I mean, they're trying now to like give it more credit, but I think largely the documentary that came out recently about it is more about how this poor actor who was encouraged to be in this film, who was gay and was scared of coming out as gay, encouraged to kind of come out with it in this film that clearly is an allegory for being gay, had his career totally destroyed by being it. Now, that being said, that's a terrible fucking movie. 2 is awful. It's just not a good movie. 3, by comparison, was goddamn Citizen Kane, but it also had the okay, fair, but it also had the advantage of the return of Heather Langenkamp, who was in the first movie. It felt like it was a real sequel. Second movie felt like a total spinoff.
For sure, I think a lot of the love for this is that, plus Saxon being back, and plus when you have like Patricia Arquette and then you have Lawrence Fishburne in it, there's like good actors populating your movie, which really elevates some of this like really silly material.
Yeah.
They're sharing dreams and they're like talking about their different powers and what they could do. It is like the most like after school special Disney Channel bullshit. It is so hard to watch. Guys like picks up the chair, he's like, look at me, and the other girl's like, I'm pretty and badass in mine. It's so hard.
It's kind of the beginning of the super gimmicky, goofy deaths, you know.
But you love heroin at the same time, so it had a little bit of an edge.
This photo actually kind of turns me on, but still, you know, this is a set photo, not a screen photo of Patricia Arquette being eaten by the giant Freddy head. But and there was kind of the beginning of the goofy deaths in the films that is partially what destroyed this series.
But I feel like that Dream Warriors is where Nightmare on Elm Street, the culture caught up to what was going on. And that was the movie that kind of solidified the way we think of Freddy in the mainstream. And is the first one to sort of engage with the mythology. Obviously, the first one had set it up. The second one had ignored it. And the third one actually went back and tried to figure out how does this, fit together. And I also thought, it was pretty well shot for the kind of movie that it was. It was actually well directed. And I think it's fairly coherent as opposed to particularly the ones that follow. Which make zero sense, or just like you said, just an excuse to have stupid quips and stupid kills and all that. And this is right before Freddy sort of just becomes like the jokester, like prankster guy that we all.
He's got some jokes in this, but it's not nearly to the level that follows.
It's trying to actually be a horror movie with like a story.
I think a big part of this one's also the year it came out. Like I feel like that it's like in like the list of one of the first horror movies I may have seen, because it's around that time when. I think it was like 7 or 8 when this came out, and you're like, oh, I'll watch this. And it wasn't that scary that it would really scar you. Or like the first one with that body bag. I mean, that terrifies me. But this one, it was like palpable for like somebody younger to watch and be like, that's a horror movie I just watched. And I still remember scenes from seeing this when I was a kid, like with a little like mouse on their like her arm wanting the drugs and like the wheelchair. Like I remember those, and I didn't rewatch this. I haven't seen this since I was a kid. And I still remember a lot of these scenes.
I had a really similar experience. It's like I saw this. This is the first Nightmare movie I saw, and I was like, "Oh man, I love this. I can handle this." So I rented the first one. Fucked me up so hard. This is what these movies are like. I can handle it. It's like, fine. I'm 10. I can do this.
The first movie was my break with like. Liking horror films and also realizing getting scared was fun, because I would not watch horror movies before Nightmare on Elm Street. I just was like, no interest, don't want it. I saw, that snake horror film. I saw like a couple scenes from that when I was younger. I went, nope, I'm done. Scared of snakes for the rest of my life. But
I thought you were struggling to find the name of the movie when you went.
I love that.
It was what it was called. But
more movies should be onomatopoeias like that,
right? After school with a videotape of Nightmare on Elm Street was like, we're watching this, and he's one of the guys. He was cooler than me. I kind of wanted to impress him, so I watched it, and he's like, I'm so fucking scared, and that mix of like trying not to be a lame with the cool guy there, made me just appreciate being scared in a weird sort of way. I was able to sit back outside myself and analyze it, and I fell madly in love with it. I've seen that movie.
Did you impress him? That's ultimately what I want to know. Yeah. Did you impress him?
I don't know. We're still friends. We talk.
Okay, it sounds like your scheme worked.
It worked.
I guess. Yep. I mean, let's go on to the next film. Bram Stoker's Dracula. Certainly one that was controversial at the time when it came out, because well, I mean, let's face it, it wasn't all good, but there was some stuff that was very good about it, I would say.
Yeah.
I think this movie is an incredibly mixed bag. Like, it's got some of the worst acting and some of the coolest special effects of all time, like, all crammed together.
It's a mixed bag that's like really polite, man. Like I haven't seen this since I was really young, and holy shit, I didn't even notice when I was younger that that's Keanu Reeves doing like a faux British accent.
The worst British accent of all time.
And him and Winona Ryder are so rough in it, which is insane because in the same movie you have Gary Oldman and Anthony Hopkins being like pretty eccentric and big, but it's like entertaining to watch, and it's just like the movie slows to a halt whenever it's Winona Ryder and Keanu. I do like how.
Sorry, go ahead.
One nice thing about this movie that I genuinely enjoy is how weird and horny it is for like a big Hollywood movie. You know, this thing is like weirdly horny, like as Dracula and vampires, but like in a strange way, which I appreciate.
Yeah, Lucy. I'm just saying that was a little formative for me. Lucy turning into a terrible evil vampire and me watching it going, it's worth it.
I mean, it's definitely a movie that I've watched a lot of times throughout the years. Like I've seen it multiple times. In fact, we went to go see it at the Draft House this year. They did a Terror Tuesday screening and we went
35 millimeter.
Yeah, 35 millimeter. And I feel it's weird to think like this is Coppola, you know, and I think that his filmography is, you know, he has that amazing run in the 70s and then he kind of flounders in the 80s, but he does make some interesting films like Rumblefish. And and I feel like with this one, he's trying to be an innovator, and there's a lot of innovation in the movie. You know, he shot it with practical effects, everything's in camera. He has an amazing vision of Dracula that I have never seen before in a movie, that he is this constant shapeshifter. Every time we see him, he's someone different, and he has these, you know, the stunning costume design, you know, the makeup, and this idea of it being a love story more than like a horror movie. And I responded. I feel mixed. Like I think I really love the movie when I talk about it, and when I watch it, it can be kind of slow, kind of weird, kind of goofy.
That's a perfect descriptor of how I feel about it. Like when I watched it a couple days ago, I was just like struggling to get through it. It's like seeing this thing, there's stuff I loved in it, and it's like, yeah, this is really weird and interesting, and it's really, I love how it's like trying to capture like an old Hollywood movie, like one of these old monster movies, classically, like the way people like are bunched up together and when they talk, it seems very much like one of those like almost 1930s movies, but it's at the same time like trying all these like wildly like different techniques, and the camera is constantly moving, and there's tons of like these weird edit choices, and the performances are insane. But then another scene is just like, it's brutal to watch Keanu Reeves do this British accent and then talk like about their love, like in like Winona Ryder. It's just like such a slog. But after it was done, like it's fun to think about, and it's fun to like why is this movie as weird and as like bad as it is? But it's also like really good, and it's an interesting one.
Yeah, and I also think that's sort of what I love about the movie now. As I've got as a kid, when you see it, you're sort of, what is this movie? I thought it was going to be Dracula, and then it's not. And then as an adult, you're like, holy shit, this is amazing. I mean, the fact that you would think Francis Ford Coppola, they're like, well, why don't you make a Dracula movie? Kind of get on, you know, track, you know, make a hit movie. And this is the Dracula movie, and it's violent and sexual and weird. And I am blown away by how daring the movie is, that it's a giant, big budget movie with movie stars. And it's this vision of Dracula. And it's probably my favorite Dracula movie. I just don't think anything even comes close to just this explosion of creativity. I just love the movie. And hot take, I don't think Keanu Reeves is that bad in the movie. I maybe it's just because I love Keanu Reeves, and I also think the fact that it's, you know, not his greatest performance. I find Winona Ryder probably more insufferable in the movie, but she's fine too.
I think they're equal level of just like miscast, if anything.
But I just think that just makes the movie even more interesting.
Yeah, but Gary Oldman's a score. That guy's fucking awesome. Like he kind
of putting him next to Gary Oldman like that. Like it's just, how do you compete?
Yeah,
and I think Reeves is the vision of what you would think somebody in one of these movies would be. he's almost playing like the Hammer movie version of the Dracula, and then everybody else is in this super modern '90s version of Dracula. It's an interesting contrast.
Anthony Hopkins is in like a whole other level of movie.
Oh yeah,
that was right.
He's trying to be as elevated as Gary Oldman because he has to be. Otherwise, he's going to be boring. And I think he succeeds.
Yeah, no, he's out of his mind in the movie. I loved him. He's my
I think one of the best things about this film that not enough people talk about is Coppola went and found this Polish film music composer that wasn't working on a lot of American films, and I'm not even going to begin to try and say his whole name. Mr. Killar, his last name I can pronounce, but who made one of my favorite soundtracks to a film, like scores to a film of the 20th century. It's fantastic, the score to this film, and I listened to it as just okay, this is pleasant background stuff for me.
Yeah, and the art direction's really nice. The lighting's nice. I mean, it looks
might be one of the best, like, visually designed films ever made.
Unlike Hellbound, that has painted, never-ending hallways. Clearly moved. Oh, hi.
Yeah.
Have you had enough margaritas yet?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, damn it! It's worth a shot. All right. So I don't know where Alan went, but we're gonna go.
I got him.
We got to do Army of Darkness, the final movie on Patience's list, the third movie in the Evil Dead trilogy, but shockingly not the last. And I don't mean that as a criticism of the film. I mean, it took forever before we saw anything else happen in that series. Now I get it. I'm going to always go with either 1 or 2 as the better film over 3 in terms of filmmaking. Certainly, for me, I think they're better movies, but which is the most iconic and quotable?
Army of Darkness.
It's Army of Darkness.
Yeah, all the quotes come from this, like the boomstick shit, all that stuff. It's
all the Duke Nukem stuff.
Yeah, the stuff they used for that. Certainly, there's so many great moments in there, so many quotable film moments. But the third one was kind of his Three Stooges movie.
Oh yeah, it has a real like Laurel and Hardy Meet the Mummy vibe.
Yeah, Harmony says groovy. That was 2.
No, he says it in 3 when he fixes his hand.
He says it as well, but then it's a callback.
Yeah. Well, he does say it in both movies. He
does say it in both movies, but like this one is unapologetically like the first movie is a horror film. Like he was trying to make a horror film, and in retrospect, it's kind of funny because of how goofily stop motion animated it is. Like, I mean, the effects are cool but dated, and it makes it funny. But it's super gory. It's definitely scary. The second one is him remaking that film, but throwing in elements of the Three Stooges into it and perfectly blending those two together to where it is still scary, but it's also funny. And the third film is pretty much just funny.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, it is insane. What a flex! Like the series of 1, 2, 3, like that trajectory is just like the second one is just a remake of the first, and the third one is just like a sword and sandal Three Stooges movie. It's just like it's so fucking insane. I can't believe it was like made and released. It's crazy.
It is a film that I regularly go, why isn't there a full-length documentary about it? Because I remember the stuff I've read was a constant battle to get every single part of that film made. Just like everything he got on that film was a nonstop battle.
Or as I like to call it, filmmaking.
Well, that's not at Phil's level yet, who just gets what he wants whenever he wants it.
Everything about Phil will tell you everything Phil does in a movie is a fight. It's always a fight.
I'm kidding. I was trying to be like give Phil props as a superstar there, but
so real quick, it may be a more brutally original sequel than Hellbound.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes fucking into the medieval times. I mean, like. From just being in a cabin in the woods, he's fighting, yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's an insane leap. It's like, imagine the pitch. It's like, all right, Evil Dead, they're in the cabin. Evil Dead 2, we did the cabin again. It's like, what's your idea for the third one? It's like, well, I'm thinking
time travel.
Medieval times, we go back there. So is the chainsaw. I think this will happen in it at some point. Like, it's an insane fucking idea for a sequel.
Did you guys like the television show out of curiosity?
Yes.
I haven't seen it.
I have to say, I mean, I love Army of Darkness. I mean, that was I really hadn't seen the first 2 movies when I saw Army of Darkness. And I remember watching it and everybody else was like, what the fuck is this? And I was like, what the fuck is this? This is amazing. Just like where he's like, you ain't leading but two things, Jack and shit, and Jack just left town. I never even seen these assholes before. Like everything about the movie, I was like, what is this? And then it was, Raimi's camera work and editing was so comic booky and cool. And, I hadn't seen all that put together, and I'd never really seen Bruce Campbell. I was like, what the fuck? Like, this guy's amazing. And then, like every fan, we all just loved it. I bought Bruce Campbell's book. I bought all the, the billion double dip editions of the DVD, and they made the remake. And it was just, we all begged for the sequel and always rumors, and they gave us the TV show. And I was like, I can't believe this. And I have to say, very few things in my life have lived up to what I hoped they would be. And the idea that we got not a sequel, some 2-hour movie, but we got basically 15 hours or more, whatever, however much it is, 20 hours of Evil Dead after that. And they did a really good job with Campbell, with all this, because I didn't love the remake. I mean, the remake
does feel of a piece with Army of Darkness.
Yeah, I mean, to have nailed the sequel is amazing to me, because Army of Darkness is like one of my favorite movies ever. Like, it's just a movie I've watched a million times. The kind of movie you make other people watch.
Yeah.
And then you watch them to see if they like it the way that they never do. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with I love the remake personally, and I've watched it 4 times now, and I love it more every time I see it. I think it's.
I mean, Chris, your streak of being wrong is unbroken.
I could say the same thing to you, my good friend.
I'm with Chris on this one. I think the remake's actually very solid.
Yeah,
I like the remake. I go back and forth watching it. It is so insanely brutal. Like, and I love brutal horror movies, not for it, but like. It gets really brutal, but I think it's crafted really well. Like, it's
him trying to redo the first film, not any of the others. And I think he does a hell of a good job with it, which is not, of course, Raimi, who is closely putting his hand on the shoulder of the guy who was directing it. Name? Anybody remember the name of the guy? I'm blanking on his name. He went out.
I can't remember.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love the shit out of it. Anyway, we are getting down to about 9 minutes of time, so we're going to go to the final part of our show that we do here that you guys have not been warned about, which I call the challenge round.
Oh shit! What?
Aren't you lucky?
Uh-oh.
I fucked up and didn't and deleted one of the pictures. All right, hold on. Let's take a second here. All right, so I pull up pictures from films, and you guys, whoever's first gets a point. You win nothing. Sorry, but
I'm bored already.
Wow, I'm really invested in this.
Yeah,
this is excellent.
Yeah,
really good use of our time.
I'd buy you a shot or something if it was an option. It's just not. I don't know what to tell you. But
challenge denied.
No, you don't get to deny the challenge. That's not fair. All right. So these images are from Slant Magazine's 100 Best Horror Films of All Time. Which to say I've largely focused on the last 75. Sorry. But I think these are all decent films.
Wait, so what do we do? We just like shout it when we see it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is well thought out. Good job.
Yeah, I couldn't give you guys buzzers. What do you want?
Go ahead.
There's number one.
Citizen Kane.
What's it like? Alice something? I don't know. I forgot.
Yeah.
No idea on this one.
Alice, Sweet Alice. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, that sounds right.
1 point for Alan.
I wanted to say Still Alice, but that's not like Alzheimer's.
That sounds like a sitcom.
All right, moving along.
Oh, sorry. Moving along. Yes, let's go.
That's $1 to me, right, Chris?
What?
You didn't know after?
Did I say that?
Is someone actually keeping?
Inception.
Double backbone.
Yeah.
I was Phil. Phil got the point for that one. There you go. Devil's Backbone, which I thought that was subtle enough of one that maybe nobody would get it immediately. But man, Phil, my man, just all over that. You're like, fuck you. I know what that is. Of course I know what that is. All right, this one's a little harder.
The Umbrellas of Schurenberg.
Breathless.
13 goes.
They're all horror films.
Oh, you're right. The Magnificent Ambersons.
Toy Story 2.
Toy Story 4.
You guys are going to be embarrassed when you don't get this one.
It's the Haunting of Hill House or whatever.
Yeah, it's The Haunting.
It's The Haunting. That is accurate. Yes.
Oh!
But did I get booed for picking The Haunting?
I think The Haunting is overrated.
Me too. Both versions.
Well, I don't think you're going to find this next one overrated, Summers Brothers.
Mouth of
Madness.
I got it.
Who gets the points for that one? Is someone counting in the audience there?
I was eating margarita ice.
No one cares, Chris. Everyone is giving.
Does no one care? God damn it! I put
No,
some
Winner here.
I actually am weirdly like very invested in this. I want to win.
Oh,
You can have my point, Alan.
Well, there you go.
It's opera.
Martyr?
It's Dario Argento's opera.
It is Dario Argento's opera. That is correct. That one I thought would be harder. What did I do? I fucked up. I should have picked. I was being nice.
Under the eyes. Come on.
I was trying to pick stuff that was like medium hard, not super hard. And obviously I fucked up with you guys because you're all the Doom Patrol. So
Dress to Kill.
yep. God damn.
That was
Look at that fake hand.
that was
Somebody's watched that one with their pants slightly askew more than a few times. All right.
Whoa.
This one is going to be a lot harder.
That's Diabolique.
Yeah.
Wow. Holy
Man,
shit.
that's really
Yeah.
good.
Jesus.
Oh
You guys-
yeah, with the fucking
Everybody know their prize is anybody who sees the Summers Brothers after all this is over has to, or whoever wins this, because it's not over yet, has to buy them a shot
Great.
right when they see them. End of story.
Well, we
Is
haven't
that
won yet,
agreed? Does the audience agree? They agree. It's
They do
fine.
not.
They do not. They do not agree to that.
I
yeah,
think
see
they-
everyone in the chat saying yeah.
What's next?
Oh, sorry. Next one. Yeah. All right. And here we go.
Oh, Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Damn. That you're killing me.
If I had known
Yeah.
they would be this good, I would have picked harder ones. Jesus Christ. This
Russ
is-
is beating Rob. Let's just be honest.
That's true.
oh, is that what's happening? Yeah, we should pick
Yeah,
which
we got to put them in half. They don't get to fucking share points. Bullshit.
But that's a good point, Iggy. Why do you lose if they win?
I'm with Ixie.
Yeah.
Correct.
Fair.
Fair.
Fair question.
I'm in hiding. I don't know what else you want me to do. I'm already.
Oh,
Dave-
Day of the Dead.
Oh, Day of the Dead.
Alan got one.
Finally, I recognized one.
Maybe it was a tie. I'll take a
I
half.
think it was a big tie there. That's fair. All
All
right.
right. Warm bodies. Am I not?
Really?
That's not in the top 100 warm bodies. No.
And the last one.
Rude.
I think I got that one first. Bada bang. Good job, guys. Thank you
We
so
all
much.
win.
Everybody's a winner. That's how I play
Everybody's
it.
Of sorts.
Does anybody have any? I just, it's a tribute to Patience. Does anybody have anything else they wanted to say?
I wanted to say, like, final thoughts about the movies.
Yeah.
My reflections on them, which as a whole were sort of Patience's taste, which was, I think she was nostalgic. She liked fantasy. It was like we mentioned Nightbreed, which I remember Phil made a really good point, which is he said, I don't think this is horror. I think this is fantasy. And I think Patience's taste leaned towards that sort of pageantry. If you look at all these movies, they have sort of a bigger than life aesthetic. That it feels either fantastical or an exaggeration. It's not like just a replica. They're not just trying to be life. And I think Patience was like that. She was larger than life, and she responded to that. She liked, she was kind of a world unto herself. And the movies that she liked were kind of a world unto themselves. And I think there's also a nostalgic element to them. All of them are very, they're not sort of cutting edge. That wasn't what was important to her. Some sort of artistic thing, but more that they were fun or funny, or they were like a ride, that those things are what she responded to.
And I think one of the other things Rob and I talked about was I said, Patience I don't know if you guys remember this, she loved Firestarter.
Yep.
Oh,
The movie and the book. And I looked at that as kind of a Rosetta Stone of what movies Patience would respond to. I feel like it's all kind of there, like the 80s-ness, the fact that the movie isn't totally successful artistically, but you love it. It's just something you respond to. Obviously the Stephen King thing. And then just, that all that kind of stuff sort of snaked through there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and all these movies are can be really brutal in like some of the violence, but none of them you would ever call it grounded. They're all really like larger than life, fantastical, like you were saying, like. And that's like the common area. She loved like some like brutal, insane violence that was like way over the top. And she loved like none of it was really set in real worlds. Like nothing feels like ouch when you watch these movies. It's all ridiculous and big.
But also I think Patience didn't like super like hardcore torture porn kind of movies.
No. But
she enjoyed just fun, guys getting their head, gore kind of.
Like when the gore came out of nowhere, and it was like shocking. But like, if it was a film that was nothing but that, she'd get bored.
Yeah.
It's almost like she found like the comedy in it a little bit too, where it's just so fantastical and ridiculous, but she loved it. And then, from a time of nostalgia, probably for her.
I always would almost feel bad for her, but having too much fun celebrating how awesomely it was Patience when we'd be watching a film and something horrific would happen out of nowhere, like just brutally terrible. And when it wasn't even a horror film, and she would cackle. Like a witch's cackle, and then would be like, oh, and she'd look at me like, and I'd be sitting there laughing because I'm laughing at her. I'm like, you've changed my whole the effect this film had on me because of what just happened there, but in a good way. That just she's like so embarrassed. Like, no, it's fine. You liked it because something shook things up. You like things to be shaken up, and that was a moment that shook things up. Yeah. Like in Hereditary with a little kid's head, she was like, the audience was going to set her on fire, I think. Ben says that people, even at Fantastic Fest, being concerned by her cackle. God bless her. All right, guys. Well, does anybody have anything last thing they want to say here about Patience or promote?
No, Patience is the best. I miss her terribly.
Yeah.
And I feel that in some ways she's haunting us with this list. So
I thought about her the other day because I thought about mom jokes and how she would always turn everything into a mom joke. And I just miss that. That's really what I sometimes have to turn things into a mom joke just because it reminds me of her.
It's what Patience would have wanted.
Yes, exactly.
What's your best one? You want to put one out there?
I wish I had a good one. I'll have to think of one she would have said. So
your mom, what?
Yeah, your mom thought of a good one.
Dad joke.
Do what?
What's the difference between a mom joke and a dad joke?
No, hers was more like everything was your mom. Well, your mom thought that.
Okay, I see.
Your mom would have liked this show.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't like that. Your mom doesn't like it. Yeah.
That sounds about right.
I think she's a person who brought people together, and so I'm really happy that I'm here with you guys, like just discussing movies and sort of being happy about life. So celebrating like the good things. And I think that was something that is the kind of person she was. That's the kind of force she was in your life, and it means a lot to me that that's still a part of my life, even if she's not here.
Sure.
Yeah,
she was
amazing. Hunting us. That's scary.
She was an amazing, vivacious person who loved bringing people together. She loved that, and she loved the energy from groups. Man, she loved Deliberations of Doom so much it scared me a little bit.
Yeah. She'd get mad if we didn't record right. She's like, what's taking so long? Everybody get their shit together.
Yeah. She was so excited. She bought shot glasses with the Deliberations of Doom logo for us. That's good. And stickers.
I feel like it was a rare
stickers on everything. Yeah. All my notebooks have Patience stickers on them still.
Phil, what were you saying?
I was saying it was a rare occasion if we showed up and she didn't have like a goodie bag for everybody.
That's true. This, like she get these stickers from nowhere, like these mounds of crazy horror stickers. Like I have a little bag that's got sparkles on it that everyone gets their little goodie bag.
I still have magnets on my fridge. I've got like an old Dracula poster magnet she gave me and like an old Wolfman magnet. They're on my fridge still. Like, think about her all the time. I miss her.
Agreed. Well, I'm going to say goodbye to you guys because I have another segment coming up. But thanks to all of you. Thanks to Deliberations of Doom. We will be eventually doing new episodes because literally that is what Patience said she wanted. She said, keep going. Keep doing Deliberations of Doom. I asked her very specifically. I said, we will stop this cold if that's what you want. We will stop it, and I'm totally fine with that. And she said, no, what are you, fucking crazy? And started insulting me in a way that was appropriate to Patience. Say, don't be fucking stupid. Keep going. So we are going to, just not immediately. But I was super glad to see all you guys, all the crew in one room, remembering what a great human being like Patience. Thanks, you guys.
Love everybody. Man. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Bye, y'all.
Good night, guys.
So we are going on to do a last segment here. We always do something a little bit different than what the previous segment was. Here we are taking a look at Snowpiercer. Sorry, what the hell's wrong with me? We are talking about. Hold on, I'm trying to do technical stuff and it's not working. We're trying to do. Give me just a second. There we go. I had to kick all the guests because they weren't quitting on their own. I can only have so many people on screen at once, or it doesn't work. We got sent by TNT their Snowpiercer TV series, which I'm not sure was the greatest idea in the world. but I kind of liked it. I mean, I know Justin was like, it's CSI Snowpiercer. I'm like, yeah, for like 3 episodes.
3? It's more. Okay, so keep in mind, we can't say too much about this show, but 2/3 of the season is CSI Snowpiercer.
No, it's not. They wrap up the murder in like by the 4th episode.
And then there's a court case after that.
That's Law and Order you're thinking of.
Well, okay. Why don't we just set this up properly so we can actually like get this, do a proper review of
Well,
this.
we should do that by bringing in Paloma.
Hey, Paloma.
Good to see everybody.
Yeah, hey, how you been doing? Your meeting go well?
Yeah. I mean, my meeting went really well. Yeah.
And next, Papa Bear, Aaron,
excellent.
Finally getting on camera. Jesus,
you know,
Papa
it took me
Bear.
a while. I am without kids, which means I am 2 drinks in already and enjoying myself.
Cheers.
Gonna watch a violent movie with actual cussing on it loud tonight. I can't wait.
Story of Ricky. Ooh.
And this was more than CSI Snowpiercer.
You watched Story of Ricky finally?
Wait, me?
Oh, no,
I
somebody-
have not.
Somebody
Oh,
was
I
saying-
was just joking. Like, what's the crudest movie I can think of? Like, super violent, you can't show your kids. Kind of.
I was trying to get somebody, I thought it was Aaron, to watch Story of Ricky and go like, oh man, that movie's insane. It's like the best cult movie maybe of all time.
No,
Or somebody makes me think of Telecada Nights.
My first thought was Brain Dead, the Peter Jackson one.
Oh.
I have not seen Story of Ricky, but I do
Fucked
want
up.
to. So you're not going to have to try that hard.
Your head is so clean shaven right now. It's like Mr. Clean shaven.
Yeah, I did this like half an hour ago. Freaked my kid the fuck out.
It's freaking
Like
weird.
she walked in and went,
Who's Daddy?
and just left the room.
Should just start talking like Victor Freeze now.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age.
Oh no, I don't know that I can do that. I can't.
Anyway, Snowpiercer is an adaptation of the Bong Joon-ho television movie. I'm sorry, the movie by Bong Joon-ho, who went on to end up being like the biggest guy in the world when he made Parasite, based on a French graphic novel, which it was adapted from. I admit, when I saw this original film, I was really liking it, but went, this is such a dumb, unbelievable concept. I mean, I get it. It's all metaphor. The whole thing is metaphor.
Yeah.
And but he did it in a very visceral, fun to watch way. It just didn't really have an ending and had a sort of, well, the movie's about the metaphor and about the action, but there's no real way to wrap this up. So shrug. And I really disliked the ending strongly of the film. So when I go, TNT is making a television series of this, which, by the way, has been in development hell for like 3 years of trying to do that.
Yeah, all the production stories about what happened with Scott Derrickson's pilot and the reshoots, and then even they couldn't decide which station it was on. It was going to be on TBS and then TNT and then a different channel.
Just ridiculous.
That's kind of common, a little bit. That does happen sometimes with TV shows.
Yeah, no, I mean, it does, but there was much more trouble than I would have expected on something like this. And I was not crazy confident when it was like, it was a TNT/TBS show in the first place. I'm like, you guys are taking a very high profile, high concept property and you're trying to make it like your big launch product. But do you guys know how to do a show that you're clearly trying to make like an HBO level type show? And I'm not sure they do.
No.
I think
Not entirely.
I think
They get some things right.
I think arguably they did a much better job than I would have ever imagined that they would have done with it. But
no, I agree. I think my main complaint is it's kind of too glossy in some ways. Like it's not as gritty as the original, but I mean, it is like a network TV show, so it's kind of hard to believe that it's hard. They wouldn't. It's not like HBO where they're going to make something very, very gritty.
Well, and I gotta admit, like, I can't think of a show that I walked into more at arm's length. Like, I walked into this going, okay, goddammit, like, even though I have issues with the movie, I kind of really enjoy it a lot, and I like the director a lot. So why are you doing this even? This doesn't need to happen. And then so, like, going into that and not hating it, quite frankly, is a monumental achievement on its own. And, like, I think that they, for the most part, do it well. I still have questions about how this is going to work across multiple seasons.
Well, yeah,
like this seems like such a short form story.
Well, I mean, they ended it. There's a point about halfway through where I was like, there's only one way this can end the first season. And it more or less was exactly what I thought. I was like, there's so limited options creatively of where you can go with this to keep going after that. And they pretty much went to exactly that. Now, we're not going to say what that is, but, and I don't think everybody, I certainly have not seen the same reaction from other people.
Although the one thing I can say is, you don't need to have seen the movie. Like, this is its own story, which that was even something that I wasn't 100% on. I spent like half of it going, okay, like, is this a secret backdoor prequel where we're going to find out this is the first thing they referred in that movie? Or like, is this a sequel? Like, where exactly does this lie? And you don't really find out till towards the middle, in which is not that big a deal. It's just its own thing.
Well, I'll tell you right now, the casting of Daveed Diggs had a big deal for me of why I wanted to check this out, who I think is amazing. I think he's an incredible actor. Obviously had a huge break with Hamilton being in that, but then it was Blind Spotting that convinced me this guy is a talent that is not going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Amen, sister.
Go ahead.
Oh, I just said amen. I love him in Blind Spotting. That was the first time I kind of went, oh, okay, I will now pay attention to you when I see you in anything.
Criminally underseen film still, for the record.
Oh, yeah. And I think Daveed Diggs actually is one of the things that really holds the show together, because it feels like they weren't entirely sure how to play his character at first, but once he actually starts to become the hero character, you know, again, not to say too much about it, but the more they start to get comfortable with this character, he starts to really take on more charisma into the part. And it's kind of funny. It's like, oh, look, it's Daveed Diggs playing another character who leads a revolution against a tyrant. I just wanted someone to say Lafayette. It's in the background.
Yeah,
like,
not.
I was just going to say the revolution, like, we all know where they're going to go because it is a Snowpiercer thing. One thing I appreciate from the CSI Snowpiercer is it let them go in and hit that economic angle of like, yeah, this is the first class, the second, the third, and even the tail section in a way that I will admit I never got from the movie. Like, that first half on an intellectual level, I was really into finding out the dynamic of how the train actually does work in long form.
I mean, they definitely stuck to the underlying metaphor in the first season, although I question how that's going to continue in the second. I mean, by the last third of this show, they've kind of gone, you get it, let's get on with the plot, you know.
Well, the last third is the show you want to see for the most part. Because, I mean, you know, again, I'm not going to say that I dislike the show. I actually liked, like, by the end of the season, I was more happy than I wasn't when it finished. But in terms of stuff I can talk about, the pilot episode is a disaster, I would argue, because here's what I say about that. What I noticed about partway into the show, because I was starting to think, wow, the camera work is just so flat and everything's in tight close-up shots and really weirdly cut and edited together. And I realized that they used a bunch of reshoots and then stitched together Scott Derrickson's footage at the end. Because if you notice, the camera work changes entirely for the last 15 minutes of the episode.
I would kill to get my hands on a copy of Scott Derrickson's original pilot, which he said was the best thing he's ever made.
Me too. I'd be curious to see what like tonal differences there were and what kind of what vibe he was going for.
Yeah, but that's just what distracted me so much is that it was clear all the notes that were given by the executives where it's like, no, we got to have this happen here, and then we got to have this happen here, and we got to have this to stretch out the season. And I really want to see what the original pilot is, because this one just felt like, it kind of felt like watching Ant-Man, where you can see where the parts that Edgar Wright shot versus the ones that were the pickup shots from Peyton Reed. You're just like, it's just very disjointed at first.
I think the actors really saved the show as well. I think they all. I mean, of course, of course, he's doing amazing as well. But I think they all. I think even Jennifer Connells did a really good job as well, kind of selling this sort of like this kind of like, I don't know, like not like Hyde character, but kind of like a character that has two kind of modes of being, like the modes he's being in front of everybody else, and the modes he's. I won't say too much more than that, but she does a really good job, I think.
But yeah, Jennifer Connelly is the voice of the train, which was, I believe. Was it Tilda Swinton in the original one?
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because they pretty much took Tilda Swinton's character and split her up into Jennifer Connelly and then that Irish woman who was this character.
Well, because this wants to go a very different direction than the movie, and honestly, they have no choice. You can't not go a very different direction than the movie to make it a show that continues on And there's a point in the show where I went, I kind of approve of your choices of what you're doing here. Yeah. I meant, like, this is kind of what I feel like if I was in that writing room, the decisions I would have made. Where, like, I mean, you've got a limited amount of choices, quite frankly. I mean, it's a train that is eternally going through the snow, and we know eventually shit is going to not work out. Like, eventually it's gonna, like, the movie was dumb. Like, a spoiler, at the end of the movie, they're like, oh shit, we can live outside again. Okay, feels like someone could have figured that out, right? In the show, right off the bat, it's like, no, you even open up a hole to the outside and the cold will come in and kill everyone in the car.
Yeah,
you cannot live in the outside, not anytime soon. Like, that option is off the table. So right from the beginning, I'm going, wow, where is this gonna go? I kind of like the Daveed Diggs as a detective solving stuff in a post-apocalyptic train. Justin, sorry, but I was like, that's cool. But they wrapped that up super quick, and they let one of the main people who's like the guilty person continue to be a part of the show and an element that is going to continue to affect things. And I really liked that about it. I liked that all the plot elements serve to develop characters. Like, the plot works all are about further developing characters. It reminded me of any other given great sci-fi show, like The Expanse, or God, what was the one? I can't remember the name of it, but you know what I'm talking about.
Dark Matter, aren't you?
Huh? What?
I said you're going to talk about Dark Matter again, aren't you?
Man, Dark Matter is so good. Fuck everyone.
I haven't actually seen that one yet. I haven't seen the Dark Matter
great.
yet.
I hesitate to tell you to watch it because it ends on a cliffhanger. But
oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is that it's not even so much that it's the worst thing with the court case and the investigation and stuff, but they tease you so hard with, like, oh, it's going to start being Snowpiercer from the first episode, and then you see somebody pull a handbrake and go, no, but now it's a cop drama. And it just felt very artificial in the way that they executed that. Like, the investigation itself was just okay, because it feels like for being a thing that's based on Snowpiercer, this is very not Korean. Like, they stripped out almost all the zany stuff.
Yeah, although they did
need a lot of
the lighting sequence for one of the action sequences towards the middle to the end. Like this is shot exactly how that scene was shot, and it was a pretty sequence. It was really interesting, but it was like, oh, that's the Snowpiercer scene.
It's a lovely collection, though, of television character actors who've been in other high-profile shows. Of people, it's a who's who of, like, what's their name?
There's like half the supporting cast of Better Call Saul is in this show.
Like, that guy and that guy and that girl and that woman, and yet, you do that through the whole show. Like, wow, they did not stop spending money on the show and actors. They just decided to take it out of the CGI budget.
Well, and the visual effects are really bad in this show.
I was fair to middling on them. There's an animated sequence in the beginning that I thought was previs, and when it first came up, I went, oh no, is this what the effects are going to look like every time? But once it got beyond that, they got to be TV good, like compared to a movie, no, of course not. But compared to most other television out there, especially something that's relatively high concept, this was on par with stuff I've seen. It's better than the Berlanti CW shows.
Yeah, agreed.
Although the CG blood always looks fake, no matter what happens.
Yeah, that's hard to pull off.
Yeah, the CG blood looks terrible here. There's a point where the show gets super bloody, like the movie did, which was basically a violent, crazy push through the train for most of it. This eventually gets there, and it's 2 or 3 episodes of that, and it's pretty brutal, but it's some of the worst CGI blood I've ever seen in my life. It's terrible. It's egregious. And every shot outside the train is egregious. It's terrible. Like, so
bad.
bad.
There's one thing that happens in the very last episode. Again, I can't say what, but it's the most impractical thing that happens in the entirety of the show. And it's in such crappy CG. I'm just like, this is just, it hurts my eyes looking at it. But I actually
he froze there.
All right, well,
did Justin freeze?
Oh,
yeah,
Justin froze for a moment. All right, start your point over again.
I like a lot of the supporting cast though in this show. Like, we talked about Jennifer Connelly, Daveed Diggs. They are really good in this. Stephen Ogg shows up for doing a Stephen Ogg role. He's the dude Pike with the gray beard and everything. I still wait to see the day where he doesn't play Trevor from Grand Theft Auto like he does in every role he's ever cast in. That's literally what he's playing in this.
That's what he is. Oh, I didn't get.
I like the detective woman as well.
Yeah, well, the detective woman, which I found her story, like I wasn't into her at first, the other lady who's paired up with Daveed Diggs, but the more you got into her character in later episodes, they developed some new angles for her to do, and you're like, okay, I can see where she's coming from, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Although this show definitely also, in terms of the metaphor, it's even less subtle than the movie is in some ways. Like they literally. Yeah, I mean, there's literally a point when Jennifer Connelly spells out the themes in the pilot, just like, yeah, you see, you're here and I'm here, kind of thing like that.
But I don't have a problem with that because that's always been the nature of what this product was. The problem was, how do you turn that into a series, which obviously cannot constantly do that. Yeah. And so the show has a kind of an awkward transition moment where it goes, like I said, you guys get it. This is what we were talking about. We'll continue to be talking about it at some level, but we have to break away from it being just a metaphor into a story about characters.
Yeah.
The movie was never that. The movie was never a story about characters. This is, and I think overall it's pretty good character writing.
I'm hoping the metaphor starts to change too in the second season. Like they add some nuance to whatever their message is going to be as they continue on.
It kind of has to, based on how the season goes.
Yeah, me and Jessica were talking about earlier how we think there might be some degree of repetition of what the storyline could be because there's only so many places they could go after the season.
Well, but
they do find a story to take it with. What I was laughing. I was like, the last episode, it was like, wait, what? That's what? It's ridiculous. I mean, it's so absurd, but the whole story is fucking absurd.
Yeah, I actually like the finale. Actually, that was kind of. I mean, I was like, oh wow, I didn't think this was gonna happen. I'm curious, like, where's it gonna go? So there was some curiosity in my part.
No, I mean, if only because their options were so limited.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call it. I think by the very nature of what this story is, they are going to have to start to expand their universe in future seasons. They're going to find there's secretly a bunker of people out there, or there's some groups that have adapted to some nomadic lifestyle and is going to attack. Like something's going to happen, or I imagine them starting to run out of story, or at least run out of people.
Yeah. No, but other than that, again, we can only say so much, or the TNT reps will get pissy at us, I'm sure. But I'll say this: by halfway through, I was really bored, and I was just like, I don't know why I'm watching this rather than watching the movie. But the last 3 episodes, I would say, give you exactly what you wanted from a Snowpiercer TV show. And with that, I think I would still be curious to see what happens in the second season. It's not my top priority of shows coming up, but it did make me curious to say, okay, what's this going to lead to next for that part?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I would honestly say that, unless you're a diehard fan of the movie, in which case the changes are probably going to bother you because there are a lot of changes. I think that this is definitely worth checking out, especially considering TNT is not the place I normally think of for prestige sci-fi. I was really surprised with the quality of the show. And I think if you haven't seen the movie, you're not going to know what's going on initially. So it's going to be new to you and fresh, and you're not going to be waiting for the inevitable climax is going to happen. Yeah. And even if you have, it's worth watching because, you might not ultimately like it, but you might be like me, where I mostly enjoyed the way they hit the metaphor they were touching on in the CSI segments, and I'm kind of intrigued to see where they go next season.
It's a solid series, a collection of actors that work well with each other, that the plot serves to just detail more who they are. It doesn't all work by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, as first season jitters go, in terms of writing, it's kind of minimal, I thought. As terms of effects, it's horrible, but this is TNT, who is definitely not got an HBO budget to work with, who are doing the best they can to cut corners, which is weird because generally speaking, it's not that expensive a show produce. All the sets are kind of tiny and thin. You're like, really?
I think they only built 10 sets in this whole show.
You know what?
I think largely it's because every cast member is somebody you've seen in a high-profile show.
And the other thing is, the first season for shows like this are always super expensive because you got to build the sets. Next season, they don't have to build them anymore. So like that part of the budget's done. I would not be surprised if when season 2 rolls around, we see an uptick in effects because they already have most of the train built.
I hope they go to different train cars though, because if we have to go back to that concert hall again after we go to it like 50 or 60 times in the season, we need some new settings.
Very true.
Well, we had the second. Well, yeah, there might be. Yeah, there might be more later.
But I am going to wrap it up. We are at 24 minutes right before the 30 mark, which is our absolute Jesus Christ, Chris. I know you could talk all night, but people aren't going to watch this all night. So it's time to cut it off. My thanks to Justin, my co-host and running this whole site.
Oh, thank you. And also, I just wanted to ask just to wrap a point. Paloma, would you recommend the show or not? Just the last little point there, since you didn't say the thing.
Oh yeah. I would say, I would recommend it. I would say watch at least more than at least go up into like these like 5 or 6 before you give up on it. Because I think the further up you go, the more you have available. Yeah.
Also, it's only 8 episodes too. Like
10.
9. Was it 10? Okay, it's 10 episodes.
Yeah.
It's not a hard watch.
Yeah.
No.
I agree.
Yeah.
Paloma, you'll be able to see soon with her own column. One of us, she's going to be taking over her own column. Literally the first person we've given our own column to in like over a year. So
Yay.
yeah. And then Aaron, who will be returning very shortly, you'll hear him next week where he is going to review Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. Pauses in the correct place there. Justice League Dark Apocalypse War with me on Digital Noise.
I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on that one. I've heard so many thoughts on that movie so far.
It's interesting.
Yeah, we have very specific thoughts about it, and they will be said on Digital Noise, which should be coming out midweek next week. But thanks everybody for listening. Thanks to you guys for being part of this. Really appreciate it. We really appreciate being one of us. Nothing keeps us going more than becoming a subscriber. Please become a subscriber to Oneofus.net. It makes such a huge difference. It's so expensive to run this site, and it still gets more expensive all the time, especially as I start messing with video and new things that we have to pay with that come out of the budget. If you like this, please, we have a subscriber thing with 2, 5, what is it? 2, 5, 10, and 25. Sorry, I had.
Come on, Chris, you should be better. This is your job.
I know. I feel like I've entertained, just don't know what the hell else is going on.
I'm the drunk one here.
Well, okay, you do the close one.
Oh shit! No. Wait. $2, $5, and $10. Please subscribe. Every dollar helps.
That wasn't the whole thing. You forgot 25.
Shit. Okay, 25. There you go.
All right, fine. Justin, you do it.
Don't look at me. No, yes. But yeah. Also, please. Sorry, I will say, please follow us on Facebook. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitch. We're going to be doing more Twitch streaming with stuff for later shows and as such. Yeah, please. Every little bit helps to get spread the word. Share this with your friends. We are very, very grateful for anything that we can do that you can do to help us out with the site. And we have even more reviews planned. I mean, we got 2 months backlogged of reviews, ready for Screener Squad and Highly Suspect, I believe. So.
Yeah, we've gotten into super organized. We're expanding our crew significantly. We've added 15 people, I want to say, at least, to our crew. And we've significantly set up a back organizing system to try and get it where these things are going. These things are going. They're just going. Bang, bang. Here's the review. Here's that review. Justin's like, well, I didn't sign on for this.
I'm having trouble keeping up. I'm just like, hold on. There's 2 shows I'm on and 3 reviews and this stuff. We barely finished Capone on time.
I do want to say, Iggsy is right. I do think everyone needs to donate to my booze fund so I can hide it for my kids and have a good store hidden. I have a cabinet for it and everything. Thank you. Great idea.
Yeah, I think the site you do that for is called Go Buzz Me.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Holy shit, that's real? Oh my god.
Maybe. I don't know.
If you just came up with that, Justin, you're a genius.
I have to go to a patent office now. Hold on. I'll be right back.
You know what? It would just feel like reality if it's it's a guy who doesn't drink because of his religion who set up that site.
Yeah, he makes money off of us alcoholics. It's good business.
A Mormon's secret plan to take over the world.
Sometimes being the sober one pays off. I'm just saying.
I'm not going to deny it, although that's largely just what I've heard. Good night, everybody.
Good night.